kind of get a sense of where you are on your mat so that when we do the after test, you can be in a similar place. And you can track your eyes. So when you turn your head, and now again, we don't want to force into stretch sensations. We're not going to like end range. What we're doing is turning to a comfortable range. So this might be something that we would do in a shoulder check when we're driving. So again, we're thinking kind of functionally. Functional range would be, you know, I'm not going to kind of try to force myself to go through a stretch and go as far as I possibly can when I'm in the middle of doing whatever it is that I'm doing. So for this test, we're looking for ease. So if I turn my head to kind of that point of ease, like here's the point where I sort of feel that if I go further, I'm going to get into stretch sensation and then maybe even a little signal from my body, you know, I don't like it. So paying attention to that. Okay. And then track with your eyes, just find a point that you can kind of measure. This is where you were. And then check your left side. So again, not to end range, just to kind of going by comfort. This is a comfortable range for me for head turning. You can do once more to each side just to double check. And now without the help of your hands, we're going to go into a twist. Now, this would be something like, you know, I'm reaching into the back seat of my car. And again, you can use your eyes to get that kind of reference point. So if I without the help of my hands, I just use my core and I just use kind of going through the motion with my torso. I'm putting my hands here so that they don't help me. You can also put them, you know, in butterfly or the namaste hands or prayer hands. And again, taking your eyes, tracking for your point of reference, going to your range where it's like, this is my ease. This is how much I can twist in a really easy way without any sense of force or without any strong sensations coming up from my system. Okay, so get a sense of that. And we'll do one more. Let's do a little bit of a back bend as well. So just because we're not warmed up, be gentle with this, like specifically gentle with this one. And what we're going to do is go into a Sphinx pose. So this one is laying on our belly. And then we're going to look over our shoulder. And look over our other shoulder. And again, you can just track with your eyes. Right now, really all we're doing is assessing. We're just getting some information. What's my kind of baseline range of motion right now in the state that I'm in today? All right. And hopefully my dog stops barking. And all right. And then let's do a little bit of centering, and we'll see if we can settle the nervous system by using some breath. For this one, I'm sitting in hero. This is a really comfortable place for me to be. It might not be for you, so I'm going to invite you to choose a seated posture. You can be in a chair, you can be on cross-legged. I also really like to use the blocks so that I can be in a kind of supported hero. So if I take 3 blocks and then come into my hero again, this way I have my sit bones are supported, so it's a lot less pressure on my feet and ankles. This is a really good one, talking about feet last time. Hero pose is a great position to be in to support the feet and ankles. But sitting directly on your feet, that might not be comfortable. So I'll give you a minute and even pause if you need to. the video so you can get yourself in a comfortable position. So you're going to be here for a couple minutes. And then once you're settled, we'll go into a little bit of regulating breath. So you're going to just track your inhale and your exhale, noticing how long does it take you to inhale, and then how long does it take you to exhale. That's going to be, you know, and the answer doesn't matter, but it's the counting of the breaths and the entering that curiosity state that's going to be kind of most supportive for the nervous system. And at this time, not trying to change the breath in any way. So not attempting to draw out or elongate the exhale or deepen the inhale, breathing in and out as you are normally. And once you have your numbers, then from there we can go to, it's maybe a little bit of elongating that exhale. Can you take the exhale to be about 1 or 2 seconds longer? And you can even shorten the inhale slightly, but not if that brings up any feeling of, you know, oxygen deprivation or panic or anything. Making sure that inhalation phase is nice and comfortable, it's relaxing for you. And then the exhale, we're drawing out a little longer. Seeing if you can get into a sense of ease with that exhale. Now, if you are, you know, going through some stressful things today and just sitting and breathing isn't having a regulating effect on you, really feel free. This is your practice time. So really feel free to make use of all of those tools we've gathered so far that do help with regulating our system. So we can do the rocking rhythmic movements. We can do that light bouncing. We can do the swaying. And if it is comfortable for you to sit quietly and breathe and focus on elongating the exhale, go ahead and work with that. Whatever works. Seeing if you can keep the exhale as easy as you can. Think of it as I'm not necessarily controlling the exhale in order to elongate it. It's more that I'm relaxing the exhale. So I'm just releasing more effort. Kind of letting it out versus controlling it out, if that makes sense. Experiment with that. If you have any questions, let me know. You can always drift a little bit at the end of the exhale. And so once you feel, and really feel free to pause the video and take your time so that you can get a felt sense of, yep, I have arrived. I can be present to my space. I can be present to myself. I'm feeling centered and calm. Or that list of the 8 C's that kind of represent that regulated nervous system state: calm, curious, compassionate, connected, creative. So if you're noticing any of those qualities, then you're probably good to go. If not, feel free to pause, take your time, take a little longer. And then just in doing breath work, we're going to retest. So turning head to the right. So for me already that range that's still within ease and comfort is already my eyes are tracking further to the right. And I'm noticing just maybe an improved ease of motion. And then let's try our twist. See if you notice any difference. And for now, kind of just keeping it within that assessment type of idea. So we're turning with an attitude of I'm gonna mindfully turn myself to that point where it stops feeling easy to turn. At that point, I'm gonna stop and maybe get a measurement, a reference point with my eyes. And then we'll do some eye movements. These can be done in so many different ways. But the one I learned from my friend Robin, who's a therapist, that I like the most is to bring your hands up and support the base of the skull with your hands, kind of letting your head rest into the palms of your hands. And then all we're going to do, we're going to keep the head in the center, and we're going to turn our eyes to look toward the right elbow. And it's important here that we're not really straining the eyes. This isn't like an eye exercise. We're really lightly turning the eyes and then holding them there, but we want that to be in a sense of ease. Once you have your eyes in a good spot to the right, go ahead and focus back on the breath. So noticing that really short, simple inhale followed by the relaxed and elongated exhale. Getting the exhale to be as easy as you can get it to be. Let's do maybe 3 more breaths with eyes to the right. A couple things too, just as you're holding, is that, because I noticed I swallowed, if you find yourself swallowing or if you find you're calming, those are signs that it's working. And then my body just took a nice regulating breath. So then we'll go to the left. So again, head stays center and we're relaxing the head into the hands. The hands are cupping the base of the skull. If you need to rest the arms in between sides, I mean, we don't want to be doing too much work, so it should be nice and easy. And then we're going to keep the head in the center and turn the eyes toward the left elbow without pulling or straining the eyes, just resting them over to the left. Now you can keep track of the time by how many breaths you take. You could do 5 breaths to kind of on each side to kind of keep track of how long you're holding. Or you can also gauge by the signs from within your body. So this would be an interoceptive, kind of gathering data from your interoceptive system. Do you notice calm increasing? Do you notice swallowing? Do you notice regulating breaths happening by themselves? And then if you notice that, you can come back to center, or if you've done your 5 breaths, you can come back to center. And then just out of curiosity, let's retest that head turn to the right, finding you're still going that really easy range, but just see if the eyes track a little further. And really what this helps us to get a sense of, again, is the nervous system's role in our tissue tone and in our range of motion, in our overall sense of mobility within a context of ease, which is really what we want. And so let's go into, you might need a block for this next one. If you're sitting on the mall, you might need to donate one from under your seat bones into being a little bit of a support for you on the right side. But we're going to start with that same motion of going into a twist to the right, staying in that range of, okay, I'm going to just where it's easy, where it's comfortable. Here's where it stops being comfortable, so I'm going to stop. And we can stay here, or if you want, you can use the hand mainly to support, not to use the arms to help you get more range, but have the arms there to support you so that it can continue to be, you know, a restful position. So not trying to increase your range of motion, only turn the eyes to the right, again, without straining. This time what we're going to do is we're going to go into a few different eye positions within this position of my twist. So I'm going to take about 2 to 3 breaths, eyes to the right, 2 to 3 breaths, eyes to the left. And you can do 10 seconds if you're looking at a clock, or you can go by what feels good. So if you haven't yet, turn your eyes to the left, but keep everything else the same. And then maybe looking up for a moment, and looking down. And then let's come back to center. Maybe just, so, you know, regulating breaths again might happen on their own. We'll do a couple of shoulder rolls, you know, wiggle or unwind a little bit. And then let's check and see if the range of motion has changed. So I'm noticing so I'm still in, this is still where, this is where it continues to be easy for me to twist, but my eyes are tracking here and before they were here. So that's quite different in my internal experience. Anyway, I don't know how it looks for you visually, but let's go ahead and do that on the other side. So starting with your twist, keeping in the range where it's easy. Use your block to support. And this is optional. Obviously, everything we're doing is optional, but so we'll start with turning eyes to the left for 3 breaths. Eyes to the right for 3 breaths. Looking up. And looking down. And turning back to the center, maybe some shoulder rolls. Again, just noticing for things like swallowing, regulating breaths, or an interoceptive sense of calming. And then retest. And we didn't test this one, but it's another really nice vagus nerve one, which is to incorporate a little bit of ribcage mobility. And this one we can use as there's a couple different variations of this one we could do, but the idea would be to incorporate it into a side bend. So we come into a side bend, but you're going to hold your head. So you just want to support that neck. You can also support the ribs with your opposite hand. And for this one, so I'm going side bend to the right, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my eyes and I'm going to look toward my elbow again. So I'm looking at my left elbow while I side bend and head tilt to the right. And again, taking about 5 breaths, coming back to center. And we could do, so this one we could have done a before and after, so we could have done like a regular side bend just to get a felt sense of it, and then do an after. And if you want to, go ahead and do a side bend to the left just to get a gauge, like what is my side bend range? And then we will go into the supporting the head. Also support the ribs if you want. This is kind of optional. But the idea with this one is that I'm side bending to the left. And with this hand that's supporting my head, I'm going to look at that elbow and hold my eyes there gently for 5 breaths-ish. You can hold the eyes there longer. And sometimes if you're really worked up, it might be better to hold the eyes for a minute or 30 seconds or a minute. But for some of these more challenging positions, we might not want to be there that long. Then you can come back up. And if you'd like, you can do your side bend each way and just get a sense of if, did the rib cage open? Does it feel more, do you feel a sense of ease or mobility through your side ribs? And then why don't we do our Sphinx? And then that'll be the last one that we do. And these, when we work with vagus nerve really specifically, especially if stress levels are high, it can bring some things up to the surface. So I really want to welcome you to bite-size this particular practice, but any practice where we're working with the nervous system. So if it feels like, okay, I've had enough of that, just zip ahead to some of the balancing stuff, and maybe come back to this Sphinx pose a little later at another time. Otherwise, coming onto the belly, coming onto elbows. So with Sphinx pose, I like to be on elbows, but you can also have your hands, so we just kind of basket the hands further in front of you, and this is going to make it a little bit easier. So you can see how you're sort of coming up a little bit less. So if all the way up into Sphinx feels like that's too much of a bend for what my back can handle, come into just basketing the arms. So fingers to elbows. And then we're turning and looking over the shoulder, but again, just nice and light. So I'm both turning the head, but I'm also turning my eyes. And then I'm going to hold here. 5 breaths. And then turning the head to the left, turning the eyes to the left. When you're finished with this, you can basket the arms again and put the head. So your forehead is going to be on your forearms. You're just going to rest there for a breath or two. Take a bit of time to notice. And then again, just for that sake of the before and after, coming into your Sphinx and turn. And I don't know if you remember where your eyes were, because this was a while ago now, but get a sense if, again, that range of motion we're looking for is to be in that space of it's easy to turn this way. As soon as it feels like it's no longer easy, then I'm going to stop. And then tracking your eye position and see if that kind of range of ease has increased. Right. So what we'll do now, we'll switch gears a little bit into some proprioceptive exercises. And for this one, just maybe track yourself to see those eye movement, the eye movement stuff can be really powerful. It can be very restful, very regulating. And you might find, you know what, this is a good time for me to pause the video and go into a bit of a meditation and really enjoy this quality of nervous system regulation. So really now, like, stop at any point along the way. And if you're still up for it, we can do a bit of proprioceptive work, which also has a regulating effect on the nervous system. So as my body is tracking for where I am in space, then I'm both kind of stimulating that interoceptive quality and as well as the proprioceptive sense. So my body, if I do something that's going to challenge my balance, then what you might find is that as soon as I get into a place where my balance is a bit challenged, see if you can self-track. So what has to happen inside? And there's no wrong answer. I'm really just getting you to check. So as you step onto something, maybe a little bit, it could be just a pillow that's really stuffed and makes you feel a little wobbly. As I step on that wobbly surface and my balance is slightly challenged, what do I need to do inside? So what happens? Does maybe my core activate? Maybe I come into a bit of more focused attention. What shifts and changes all by itself? As soon as I put my balance a little bit to the test. Now, if that's way too much, and for beginner yoga students, it might even be something like standing on one foot is enough to challenge the balance. So again, really this is where the tracking comes in. We want to check with how much challenge is the right amount of challenge for what state I'm in this moment. So you can bring the foot forward and back. And again, as you're doing this simple motion work, we're tracking inside. What do you notice? Feel free to do something really stable. For contrast, to stand in mountain pose. And then as soon as I shift and begin to challenge my balance a little bit, what happens inside all by itself? So you might notice little neuroceptive activations. And this is the part Carol was really talking about, is how this happens so spontaneously and quickly. And it arises from, you can probably feel it in the in that where most of those interoceptors are in the gut. Feel free to up it a little bit too, like play with it. So again, checking, find a stable stance and really track that, what it's like to be stable. And then go into something a little mildly challenging. As soon as you do, what happens all by itself? Can you get a sense of the nervous system's little feelers, trying to kind of detect, where am I? Where am I in space right now? Maybe you feel a little muscle activation. Maybe you feel the legs and the core. And there's no wrong answer. This is really a tracking exercises that we do are really about entering a state where we can be mindfully, curiously present to our internal environment, so that we can build up that interoceptive skill by checking. Yeah, this whole practice today, I would love to keep it on the easy end of the spectrum. So we're not going to do anything. We're not going to do anything really physically challenging. Really more working with the nervous system to get an experiential sense of these different states. You know, the different ways, the different aspects of the nervous system turn on and off, or gear up and gear down. Now feel free to, you know, increase the challenge to the degree where it's like you can really get a response so that you can feel. So once I get myself to where I get a little unstable, that's the moment where I can really feel that proprioceptive system. Like, oh, it feels little feelers come out. Where am I? And play with it. Give it another maybe minute or so. Again, taking time as needed to come into your mountain pose or any stable stance. And then coming into your balance and taking that time to notice, as soon as I get a little wobbly or get a little unsure of where I am, what happens all by itself? Okay. Okay, and once you're finished with that, let's do a little bit of mindfulness meditation. You can sit if you prefer. You can lay down in your Shavasana pose on your mat if you prefer. Thinking back to where we started. So when we began the practice with checking in with our internal state and counting the breaths, let's go ahead and do that now and see if there's any change. So without trying to change the breath in any way, counting how long it takes to inhale, how long it takes to exhale. You might have forgotten the numbers that you had at the very start, which is okay, but you know, intuitively get a kind of overall sense of if has your nervous system tone changed in any way? Do you feel a sense of greater calm or Well, as we talked earlier about the ventral vagal state, versus a sympathetic activation, and what the qualities are and how they're a little bit different, maybe what they feel like. So intuit that. Again, we can look for the emergent properties of the ventral vagal state, those qualities like it's maybe a bit easier to be curious about my internal experience or my internal environment. Or maybe I feel a little bit more connected with myself, creative with my thinking, or creative toward problems in life. Calm is another of the C words. Courageous is another really great one for when times are tough. Can we tap into the courage or the confidence that we can access from this state, from this nervous system state? And so I'll leave you here. This might be a good space for you to go into a little bit of meditation now. I will probably put one on your playlist next so that you have, maybe a 10 or 15 minute meditation that you can drift into. So just let this continue playing if you want to keep meditating, or you can get up and get back into your day. And continue to really self-track, really notice. Just like we do that pebble in the pond, really notice the impact of your practice. How has it impacted your state, your nervous system state? How does it feel in your tissues now? If you move and wiggle and check range of motion. Or even if you're laying on the floor, how does it feel to be in your skin? Is it a little bit easier for you to rest into your body? Okay. And so enjoy, have a wonderful meditation, and I will see you next week.